It's a hard knock life for us. It's a hard knock life for us. Instead of treated, we get tricked. Instead of kisses, we get kicked. It's a hard knock. I can't believe I'm singing. Well, it's a hard knock life for every Nigerian lucky enough to see this weekend. What a life. And let's begin. Morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra. My name is Mazino Appeal and I have the privilege of welcoming you to another weekend installment of the show. As usual, we'll start with a prologue that summarizes most of the topics we'll be touching on today as we review the past 1 week. And what a life it's been. What a country, the drama, the intrigue. It's indeed a hard knock life, especially for the people of Okuama, Ughelli local government area of Delta State. The state government learned a valuable lesson this week. I can best summarize it as trying to give a cat a bath. Good intentions sometimes don't end up as you intended. The Okuama people have taken a stand, and not in the way that the government actually expected. They've refused to use the IDP camps prepared for them. I mean, who needs a ready-made shelter when all you have is nothing? But in their defense, as we learned at the town hall meeting organized by News Central, these people have valid reasons for not leaving their ancestral homes, and it's not as far-fetched as it sounds. In fact, the IDP camps set up for them, now that's far-fetched. So while the state government may have thought that they were offering a lifeline, the people of Okuama saw it as an invitation to an unintended exile. They prefer to stick it out in their ancestral homes. Maybe next time the government will think twice before trying to bathe the proverbial cat. And you better buckle up, people, because our political leaders are going medieval. And this time, well, hey, at this rate, the next assembly session might require chainmail and helmets. And I'm not kidding you. The news cycle took a wider turn than the Rivers State Fubara versus Wike debacle this week. And this time, it's across the river in Cross River State, where members of the State House Assembly engaged in a bit of medieval jousting with the House mace. And I'm not kidding you. We once again saw the mace wielded as a weapon as the Cross River Assembly as they impeached its Speaker, Mr. Elvet Ayambem. Now, the incident managed to turn the House into a war zone, and it's like exciting times. I mean, who knew the mace had dual purpose, ceremonial symbol and combat equipment? And maybe it's time to start considering a no open carry policy for House maces. And while they're playing Knights of the Round Table in Cross River State, in Lagos, we're still in the midst of a demolition derby. Yet another community in Okuama has cried out for the government to save their homes. It seems like the government has been playing a cruel game of monopoly, but instead of plastic houses, they're sending in real bulldozers. I mean, you got to ask the question, how many more neighborhoods will be bulldozed before we figure out a way to develop without displacing people? However, the residents of Okuama can now breathe a sigh of relief as the federal government announced the change in the intended route of the Lagos-Calabar highway. But wait, hang on a second, I'm confused. There is a change again? Seems like there's a hint of something fishy going on here. Because just weeks ago, strategic demolitions were causing businesses to lose millions in property. And now, all of a sudden, the government decides, hey, let's return to the path that could have avoided all of this destruction in the first place. You mean you could have avoided all of this in the first place? Now, let's check for their statement. I wonder what it might be. We have the government statement here. Yes, this is it. Oops. Yeah, that's all they said. Well, don't quote me because I don't want to get arrested. In any case, let's move over now to Kano State, where it's not a hard life or hard knock life. It's the return of the Mac instead, as Muhammadu Sanusi was reinstated as the 16th Emir of Kano in a turban ceremony that saw him striding back into the palace in grand style. It's as if the last 4 years were just a small, dramatic commercial break, and now the show is back with a vengeance. And boy, do I love that man. I mean, he's educated, he's erudite, he's regal. Wish he was my uncle. And while the affairs of the emirs might seem like a historic and traditional saga, you'd be right to wonder if this is the ultimate comeback story or maybe just a prelude to the next episode of political chess, where all the pieces keep returning to the board no matter how many times you knock them off. Oh, and by the way, South Africa is gearing up for what might be the most dramatic elections yet. The ANC is facing strong opposition for the first time in many, many elections. It's like watching a seasoned champion boxer, with a challenger, a very hungry one. anything can happen, and the spectators, well, they're all in for the show. So are we here in Nigeria. So as we sip our coffee and prepare for another eventful weekend roundup here, remember, we're all aboard the Breakfast Extra Express, and this is your last call to strap in because the train is about to leave the station. With that, I bid you welcome to Breakfast Extra, and please say hello to my beautiful co-host, Judith Atibi.
Woohoo!
How was your week, Judith?
Good morning, Mazino. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Very
Is
nice
it a hard
dress.
knock life for you as well?
Hey, it's a hard knock life for me. It's a hard knock. I was saying that's a beautiful dress. Saw you earlier.
Oh, thank you.
That's very nice.
Thank you very much.
In any case, Lagos, Nigeria, Africa, the rest of the world, strap in, get ready. When we get back, it's going to be time for the dailies.
Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra. It's another Saturday morning right here again. And nothing as good as starting your weekend with a look at the headlines making front pages. So let's kickstart your morning, okay? Now we're going to bring you some of the headlines today, mostly from Nigeria and some front pages from Africa as well. Our very first headline for today was going to be we're going to take it from The Guardian. Hopefully that's the first one that pops up.
Alrighty, now taking a look and seeing The Guardian newspaper this morning, we have these headlines. Yam, Nigerians, a major staple, now a luxury item for average homes. And of course, at the very top there, it's crucial to have more women in the room serving as connectors for others. Nothing is too much for Atiku Obi to sacrifice if they want to oust APC from power in 2027. And at the bottom of the page for The Guardian this Saturday morning, Tinubu's administration most influential on National Assembly affairs order paper. And to the far right there at the bottom, Kano Emirship stool. Sanusi returns to palace amid court injunction. Very excited about that story. I'm wondering if I'm the only one who's excited.
I know you are. I know you are
He's
excited.
my uncle. He's my uncle.
That's your uncle. Moving away from The Guardian, now we move on to our next paper, and that should be the Daily Trust for today. Let's see if we can pull that up on our screen there just for you. There we are. The very first headline that jumps at you. Again, CBN sacks over 300 staff, pencils more for disengagement. And that's on page 8 there. At the very top there, traders hawk Naira notes in Delta. You can find that story on page 28. Mixed feelings in Karayi, Bichi, Gaya, Runa as dethroned emirs leave. You can find that story on page 4. Lawyers divided over High Court order. Emir Sanusi gets appointment letter. George granted order from U.S. governor, from us, I beg your pardon, that's on Governor Yusuf. And then we go at the bottom there from the cover story, the Angwa, Jumai, and that's towns with identical names in Nigeria and Niger. You can find that story on page 6 and page 5 as well. AGF, police, health ministers showcase achievements, and that's on page 7 as the ministerial scorecard series continues in the FCT Abuja. And right next to the headline there is, they stole my rented cart. Kano female water vendor cries out. That's on page 3. They've been stealing quite a number of things from me as well.
Yes, indeed. Moving on now to the Punch newspaper for a Saturday morning. Big headlines that meet you here. FG assessment portal. Nigerians rate power, defense, Greek education ministers poorly. I'm wondering what it could have been if not poorly. Ministers rated on economic reforms, national security, food security, unlocking energy, and others. FEC members may be judged on funds, usage, delivery on a Hope agenda. There's so much there. And if you look at the bottom of the photo story, we'll show you 1 year on, Nigerians eagerly awaiting dividends of Tinubu's renewed Hope agenda, and a picture of the president there looking for a lawn. Why I still play organ in church, Oshun Monarch, and over 3,700 students from 126 institutions register for student loan. There's a local parlance that says Dengo Hiram, but we'll talk about that after. And NAHCON airlifts 16,794 pilgrims, Christians, to pay 4.9 million naira. Labour eyes 100,000 naira minimum wage as NEC meets Monday. Judith, at this point, I want to say I said it.
I know.
Didn't I? But yeah, 100,000 naira is what Labour is eyeing. Keeping Nnamdi Kanu in prison is wrong, says Shoyinka. And at the very top, and lastly, it's sad. My wife died 3 days after having triplets. Grieving widower says. Sad.
Very sad indeed. We move now to the Nation Saturday. As we switch now to the station Nation Saturday, there we are. The very first headline that jumps at you: electricity tariffs to crash with time, says Minister, and that's on page 4. Federal government targets 6,000 megawatt generation by year end. Adelabu, power sector's reform have attracted investors. Interesting. At the bottom there, you see Sanusi, no man can take what God has given. And that's on page 4. Why I reinstated the monarch by Kano governor. Vows to report judge over restraining order. Kwankwaso didn't give order for reinstatement. Moving away from that, another story here at the very bottom there. Court orders for feature of $4.7 million, 830 million naira properties linked to Emefiele, and that's on page 2. Ooh. Moving away from that now, terrorism. Only court can decide Nnamdi Kanu's fate, AGF. And that's on page 3. At the bottom there, CBN sacks 200 staff in restructuring move. And that's on page 7. At the very top of the front page there, Tinubu to Nigerians task governors to take responsibilities seriously, says effective local government administration critical to development. Nation no longer bleeding, printing paper money. And that's on page 5. And also, economy grew by 3% in first quarter of 2024. And that's from the National Bureau of Statistics. NBS says growth driven by oil and services. You can find that story on page 6.
And moving on now, let's do the Saturday Independent. Very big headlines here, and so many of them. The Independent spared no space here. Knox kudos trailed President Tinubu's 1 year in office. We see bleak future. Buhari's 8 years will be child's play, says the LP and PDP. That's gloomy, as APC lists achievements here. And then at the top, IPOB, why FG can't free Nnamdi Kanu, FGF. Fagbemi says, and Pandef Ohaneze eulogized Chief Clerk at 97, and academic giant Professor Ayobanjo dies at 90. At the bottom, you see retaliating against my trade uses, waste of energy, says Governor Fubara. And Sanusi's reinstatement, I'll report judge who stopped enthronement at Governor's Forum, says Governor Yusuf. Protesters storm Aso Rock, urging Tinubu to intervene. Intervene in what? Find that very interesting read there on page 29 of the Saturday Independent. CBN hiked interest rates will make more Nigerians poorer, economists and others say. And NAHCO revenues reached 28.4 billion naira as shareholders get 2.54 naira dividends. And that's all for the daily, or rather the Saturday Independent.
Let's move now to East or West Africa, East or South Africa, and we're going to Kenya. We're already seeing the pictures of Ruto there and Biden. So you see William Ruto in the Oval Office. Do you see the photograph? He's sitting at the table there, and then nice. Biden was behind him. Now this one is the Saturday Nation. It's from Kenya. The very first story you see there is Kenya, U.S. and a new power pact. Red carpet rolled out for Ruto, the billions pledged and surprise plans to elevate security ties signal Kenya's key role in volatile region and why America is keen to tighten its embrace and renewed push to boost influence in Africa. And that's on pages 12 and 13. Why Kenya? Gateway to Eastern Africa and continent for investors, security ally in the face of terror threat and civil wars, checking Chinese influence, the perfect shield to mask Washington's interest, stability, robust economy, innovation, and skilled manpower. And those stories that will be very interesting to read. Diplomacy, the high-profile state visit ended yesterday with more deals signed. At the very top, Uhuru camps Haki coalition 10-point game plan causing ripples in Mount Kenya. And that's on page 8. Teachers' medical cover in limbo. as shilling 17.6 billion, and that's 17.6 billion shillings. They're delayed. Hundreds of teachers turned away by hospitals after National Treasury fails to release funds for medical scheme, and that's on page 4 as well. And at the very bottom there, Freedom arrested at 18, jailed for murder while insane and released 35 years later. Freedom at last for man who wants a fresh start. Oh, we just love fresh starts, don't we?
I'm going to go to our best foreign, or rather other African newspaper here. From Cameroon, remember this one, the Guardian Post. The Guardian's always very good and interesting to read on a weekend. Starts with this one, Cup of Cameroon, Giants, Cotton Sport, PWD Racing knocked out. Little-known teams, AS Dibamba, Eververe and Eboloa. Spring surprises at the very top. Kaji Sports Academy dismantles FAP, wins championship. And a look at the photo story of their teams there. And at the very bottom, let's see here, Cameroon club president gets indefinite suspension. It's all about sports for the Guardian newspaper.
Right.
But I think that's as much as we can take for the papers this morning.
Oh, yes,
hopefully you got something very interesting, by the way.
What?
Did you remember how President Ruto got to America? Grand style.
No, listen. I love the story so much.
$1.5 million
I love
for
it
his jet.
so much.
And everybody's up in arms. But then I do understand why people are up in arms. I mean, if that was Nigeria, I would do the same as well.
Of course.
So
of course. I mean, there's so much that the country is facing economically, and then he decides, you know, I'm just going to fly in grand style to go see the president of the free nation.
But it was necessary.
No, it's not.
You are seeing the U.S. President Joe Biden. You have to represent.
No.
In any case, welcome once again, and thank you very much for joining us for the front pages. But that is all the front pages that we can take on your Saturday edition for Breakfast Extra. And we hope that you stay for the rest, because we have very interesting big stories that you guys are going to want to sink your teeth into as well. So stay tuned. Welcome to our first big report this morning. Now, returning indigents of the troubled Okuama community in Ughelli South local government area of Delta State, who were displaced on the heels of the March 14, 2024 killings of 17 military officers and soldiers last week, shunned the internally displaced persons camp set up for them for their rehabilitation by the state government. Now, a visit to the IDP camp located inside Ewu Grammar School in Ewu Kingdom showed no existence of any residents 1 week after it was opened. To provide succor for the returnees, the Delta State Governor, Sheriff Oboroweri, set up an IDP camp to cater for their rehabilitation.
Now, against the provision, the residents waited for the military to pull out and had to contend with looters from the neighboring Ukoloba communities who were reportedly scavenging the ruins of their various ancestral homes. Now, the residents consequently maintained their ground that they would rather settle on their ancestral land than in a camp set up for them by the government at Ewu Urobo, several miles from their homes. Now, on Wednesday, News Central hosted a town hall meeting in Okuama community, Delta State, Nigeria, to address the devastating March 2024 incident, where from News Central, Chidima Ona compiled this report.
Weeks of the military siege on the Okuama community over the killing of 17 soldiers and the military reprisal. The Delta State Governor broke the news of military withdrawal from the crisis zone of Okuama community.
This is a two-story building. Belongs to Reverend Father Sylvester Enoma.
Despite the government's announcement of the internally displaced persons camp for Okuama indigents at Ewu Grammar School, traditional headquarters of the Ewu Kingdom, the people insisted on not relocating from their ancestral home. The only resting place for the returnees remains this worship building where they stay. This is where they cook their food. The only source of water for drinking, cooking, washing and bathing is this river. Not wavered by the current situation, they still make our time for social life. On a walk around the destroyed community, the New Central crew came across an octogenarian who was recovered from the community bush by the returnees after staying 59 days without water and food.
Meme. Sagelo.
Tokenana. Kide warrior.
Yeah, Babola.
While soliciting for assistance to restore this woman's life, one of the community leaders revealed what was next for the woman.
For 2 months plus without food or water, it is the Lord's doing. So now that we have found her, it's our plan now to take her to hospital where we can take care of her. We call on her children so that all mini Nigeria, they can come to our rescue for this plan we have for this woman, because we need this woman to survive. And she can talk. So that's why we believe that if we take her to hospital, she will survive and she will live a better life again.
These returnees are hopeful that very soon this phase will be over and their community rebuilt. In Okuama, Delta State for News Central, Austin Azu.
Speaking with News Central, Okuama indigents affirmed their resolve to reject the option of IDP camp located at Ewurobo Kingdom, expressing fears that if they accede to the Ewurobo IDP camp option, they would lose their farm holdings in Okuama to looters from the neighboring community. So now joining us for a detailed view on conversations that happened at the town hall meeting, we have with us Honorable Jacob Akemo of Okuama, the former LG councillor, Okuama community. Honorable Jacob, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good to have you, sir. So, sir, let's ask, can you first of all provide us with a first-hand account of the current situation in Okuama? How are the residents coping with the aftermath of March 14th and returning to their homes?
Okay. First of all, I want to give glory to God because the situation that happened in Okuama is a very difficult one. But we thank God for the intervention of the government, our senator, our governor, the House of Rep members, that stand, an individual that stand to fight for us to make sure Okuama return back to their community. Now that we have returned, it's a different situation entirely. Because all that we left before and after the incident, now that we return, there's nothing remain to start from. The situation presently is very difficult. Very, very difficult with the people right now. Because there is no place to stay. The only unit that remains in that community is St. Peter's Anglican Church, Okuama. That's what built since 1903. And that is the only building that is remaining. That is where the people are managing. So to cook is a problem. They only just have one little shelter, which is the children's chapel, where they are cooking their food. And every other person is sleep in the church at night. So presently, it's a very difficult situation for the people to start up again.
During the town hall meeting that we had at Okuama, many of the residents and the indigents there express, their worries and their fears. But you are there. What is their primary concern at this time, especially relocating to the IDP camp? And what is is the government aware of their primary concern, and how do they intend to address it?
Okay. For they complained because everyone said we are not going to the IDP camp. The reasons is this. Because when we left the community for 2 months plus now, on our return, what do we met? We met our nearby community, the same people that be still troubling the riverine area in our community. They are looting from everything that remain in the community. They have been looting them. So, and little time they came again, their women, they protested that Okuama not supposed to be there again. That Okuama don't belong to Bomondi local government, that they should relocate Okuama out of that place. And this is our fear. If we leave that community to the camp, because the distance between Okuama and Ewu is a bit far away. So if we leave the community to a woo, before we return, I don't think we have a place that we call Okuama again. Because that's the same promise they promised us that Mr. Patrick from Okoloba community said it. When he through with Okuama community, there shall be no any community called Okuama again. And on our return, we are seeing the evidence of what they have been saying concerning us, concerning the community ever since. So this is our fear. That is why we decide that they are not going to the camp. Because if we leave this village, leave this community and go to the camp at Ewu, we will not come back to this community again. But now, yesterday, the governor of Delta State invited us because since the beginning of this issue, we have never had a meeting with the governor one-on-one. But as yesterday, he sent for us, our leader, we went to the government house to have a discussion with him. And he gave us the reasons why we need to come to the camp and what he will do immediately. So now we are having a rethink. Even today, we are having a meeting with the community, youth, women, and our stakeholder, so that we put us together to see how we can handle this situation on ground.
We're currently being joined now. Honorable, thank you so much for that answer. We understand that our correspondent who's in Delta is joining us live now. Austin Azu, do we have you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good morning, Judy.
Austin, a very good morning to you. You've been covering this story so far as it unfolded and just developed and from March 14th all the way till now. What is the situation, so far with the residents? Let's start from there with you.
Well, the situation with the residents, what Honorable Jacob has said is not quite different from the reality on ground. To speak at the moment, most of the returnees are currently sick. They lack food, the children are malnourished, and to speak what has before the community, no house anymore, no shelter for them, and they scrapple for the little food that can get across to them. We went there for the town hall meeting. It was like, we don't know how to describe it, but it was not a really good situation for anyone to find itself at the moment. On that very fateful day, we saw how sick the people were, the children, the adults, so malnourished, and even by the grace of God, our MD have to, rush a mother and a child to the Ugele Federal Hospital, where that person and where the mother and the child could get medical attention. And just one among the almost hundreds of them who are currently returned to the community at the moment. So the situation there at the moment, they need assistance, medical, food, and clothing, because what they leverage on, the only clothes they had at the moment is the one they ran into the bush with, and that has been what they have been wearing, washing, and bringing back. Particularly, there was an old woman who expressed how she looks at the moment. She tied her leg with pieces of clothes, and of course, she had this strong rheumatism at the moment. So ideally, I think people need medical assistance and food, because that is the most primary important thing at the moment to keep them alive, while the government and the people are trying to sort things out for where to relocate to, where not to relocate to, and so on and so forth. Let's look out for their health first and their well-being.
Okay, so Austin, we also have some information about very implicating tales that the villagers have been telling. And one of these includes the former Nimasa DG Patrick Akpabolo Kemi. Now, there are implicating stories saying that he has a hand in the genesis of the conflict that is going on. What have you heard about that?
Well, the same story they told us on the day of the town hall meeting. We heard the story before, and the same thing they repeated, because there's no smoke without fire. That's true. But they said that they were living together peacefully for hundreds of years, even before the Patrick even returned back to the community, Okoloba community, and before he started living, normal, associated with every other person who are in Nigeria. And they were living together, they were intermarried, they have this communal relationship, and they have been living together. But it's very unfortunate that the name keeps repeating itself. And I think it's an avenue for Patrick himself to avail himself to explain to the world and explain to Deltans, the relationship they had together, and where it became too sour.
Austin, I asked specifically about the Nimasa DG being implicated. I don't know if you've heard anything about it. And we're talking about Akpobolokemi Patrick. The villagers are saying that he had a hand in a conflict when it started. Are there any details about that you have come across?
Yes, like I said earlier on, the same story they told us on the day of the town hall meeting was what they repeated over time, because when the incident happened, the issue started with land disputes, and from land disputes, the military that came on the peace mission happens to be like an intelligence they gather based on the fact of what someone has told them that there are issues at this place, they need to settle it. So we are yet to hear from Patrick. So I think Patrick should be the one to tell us what happened, because he has been alleged. So he should be the one to defend himself. I have not gotten any information from him regarding if he was involved or not. But the people of Okuama has alleged that he is actually the architect of the misfortune that has befell their community.
Okay, then, Justin, let's go back to Honorable Jacob. Honorable Jacob, about this implication, have you heard about it, and what exactly are the details?
Okay, the details of this whole thing is that when we have been living in that community for decades now, we have been living like brothers and sisters. Most time, our boys, we went to Okoloba community, and we stay there. At times when they have a burial of any of the party, they visit them. The Okoloba people, at the same time, they visit our community. They can move through the Okoloba to Okuama, from Okuama to Akubene community. That is how we move. Most time you want to go to Okuama through Okwagbe waterside. When you don't have any people to move, then we cross you with a hand pulling a boat. Then as they cross you, we get a motorcycle from there down to Okuama. You will pass through Ofonibaya, you pass through Ofurokama, you pass through Ezebri, pass through Ogodobri, before you get to Okoloba. After Okoloba, you will get to Okuama. We are living so very peaceful until this Patrick, former DG of Nimasa, came back home. When he came back home, he's the one who built the Maritime University at Okoloba. To the extent later they abandoned the project. All the building have already be set up there before they abandoned it. But little time he come to Okuama. He crossed from the Okoloba boundary, crossed the boundary, the normal boundary will be. Everyone know from the onset, he crossed it to Okuama side. He graded the whole place open. What do you want to do? Okuama asked him, what do you want to do here? He said, want to build a school and his own personal compound. And he already built a compound before them. So we're surprised that we said, this is Okuama land. You cannot just come and build the land just like that. If you want to build a school, we didn't say no. It's a thing of a development. Maybe our children will still benefit from the school. But before then, you're supposed to come to the community to come and hear from our leaders. Then we have a discussion before such a project will be take off. You cannot just come that the federal government give you a project to build a school and you want to come and build it in our land. Just like that, at least you let us know. We are all human. This is just the beginning of the whole thing. We have never had any problem with Okoloba before. We have never had any problem with Akubene. They've been living together in the riverine area until when Patrick came back home, this problem started.
Now, let me come to you, Austin, or rather, I'll throw this question to both of you. What are the potential long-term implications for the Okuama community if they continue to refuse to move to the IDP camp? Because the thing about IDP camps is that they're supposed to move there and then rebuild from there. But how can they be supported to rebuild their lives on their ancestral land when there's actually nothing left there for them?
Okay, first and foremost, the implication there remains that a lot of them are sick at the moment, the returnees. So it means that they need medical help. If they cannot get access to medical help and food, it means that some of them will lose their life prematurely. So the discussion between the government and the Okuama people, I think, is ongoing. So like what Jacob rightly said, so the leaders and the stakeholders will meet again and put their heads together to see the best way forward, because we cannot lose two things at the same time. So the health and the people of Okuama must be alive to ensure that they are able to return to their ancestral home and proclaim their ancestral home. In good health, you return to your ancestral home, and in sound mind, you occupy your land. So that would be the best way for them to, settle this issue amicably between the government and the Okuama people.
Honorable Akemo, I want to ask you the same question as well. What would be the implication for them if they continue to refuse to move to the IDP camp? How can they rebuild their lives and be supported when there's nothing left in their ancestral home?
Okay. That is one of the reasons why we refuse to go to the camp. But just like what I said before, the governor of Delta State have made us understand, give us the reasons why we need to come to the camp. And I told you today we are having a meeting with the leaders, are having a meeting with the community so that we can put heads together how we can solve this problem of ground so that life can begin again. Because we can't continue the dragging with the, because the government owns us and we own the government. So today, by the end of our meeting today, we come into conclusion, we'll have an agreement on what to do and what is going to happen.
Well, okay, then. I want to say thank you very much, Austin Azu, and thank you very much, Honorable Jacob Okuama, for joining us this morning and giving us insight on exactly what's happening in Okuama. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Now, do stay tuned, because that's not all we have inside of this hour here. Very soon, we'll be taking a look at the Kano instance, as Sanusi is reinstated back as the 16th Emir of Kano State. And you're welcome back. Another big story this morning here. Only just yesterday, Muhammadu Sanusi II, deposed as the Emir of Kano State 4 years ago, was reinstated to the throne by Governor Abba Yusuf. Now, Yusuf announced the decision on Thursday after signing the Kano State Emir Council Repeal Bill 2024 into law. Now, the new law replaces the Kano State Emirates Council Law 2019, which balkanized the Kano Emirates into 5 jurisdictions and was relied upon to depose Sanusi as Emir in 2020. The law also empowered the governor to restore the Kano Emirate system to its original format. However, a federal high court in Kano had ordered the state government not to enforce the new law.
Now, Mohammed Liman, the judge, asked the government to suspend and not give effect to the Kano State Emirate Council Repeal Law 2024, as they affect all offices and institutions of the Emirate Council created pursuant to the provisions of the Kano State Emirate Council Law 2019. By the law, Ganduje had created the Emirates of Karayi, Bichi, Runa, and Gaya. In addition to Kano in December 2019, the former governor had also dethroned Sanusi II after a long-running dispute in March 2020. Now, earlier on Thursday, the State Assembly had passed the repeal into law during plenary. The Deputy Speaker, Mohammed Bitu, explained that repealing the law would revive the lost glory of Kano. And now, later on, we're going to have a guest who's going to, just go in details to talk about the implications of Sanusi II's reinstatement as Emir of Kano. But a lot have happened all through the week this week. We did see scenes there from our reporter, our correspondent, who was live on the ground in Kano State there, just going through, giving us the blow-to-blow accounts of all the events that happened all through yesterday, from him going to the Africa House in Kano there, the capital of Kano State, as well as also going to conduct the Jum'ah service, the Jum'ah service that happened, that's Jumat service, I beg your pardon, that happened in the mosque, the central mosque in the government house in Kano. He conducted that as well. There was also a mini Durbar ceremony that happened as well. Plus, he received his letter of reinstatement, as well as he was turbanned yesterday. And now he's officially the Emir of the Emirate for Kano.
It was a very exciting occasion. However, that's not all that happened. In fact, there's an update to the story happening right now because the Kano State Governor, Alhaji Abake Yusuf, has ordered the immediate arrest of the deposed emir, former emir, that's Aminu Ado Bayero. Now, what had happened is, since Thursday after his deposition, no one has known about his whereabouts, but only just yesterday, during the ceremony, as it was about to begin, he returned to Kano State, and for what many people think or thought was to cause intentional disruption of the occasion. However, he's still, well, at large at the moment, but there has been an inquisition, let's put it so, into his arrest currently. He was smuggled into Kano City, as the article says, on Saturday, attempting to forcefully return to the palace 2 days after the deposition. If you remember now, the former governor, Ganduje, had balkanized the emirates into 5 different parts, giving emirs to each of these. But now with Sanusi being returned as the emir, that's all gone after the law was repealed for 2024. That's from the 2019 law signed in by the former governor. It's exciting times in Kano, and quite frankly, if you ask me, I'm very interested to see exactly what happens after now. One reason in particular, because it would seem that the emirship for the Emirates is a very traditional and cultural one. It's historic. The intervention of politics inside of it with the former governor is what really kind of like destabilized everything in this situation, in this case. And now I'm wondering how that is going to affect tradition versus politics going on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you think about the laws, now I do not know, so don't quote me on this, but the laws, to be very clear, I think that they can interfere with each other all because of the colonial times, right? Remember, our laws have been, we have been following our colonial times. They were written at a time where, you know, there was very much interference from the British as well. So the way it was written, it sort of interferes. I do not know, so don't quote me on this, right? But I think that you're right. It's just the same way we always ask that the state be separated from the church. The traditional rule or the, you know, the monarch as well should be separated from the state. And that also happens with the UK as well. There's a parliamentary system of government. There's also the monarch as well. And they don't interfere in between. The prime minister does his thing, the monarch does his thing, and they don't interfere. They just go and have their separate meetings where he gives updates. Like, well, you're the prime minister. Do what you have to do, you know? And I mean, that's on a state, that's on a national level, but this is a state level. And even though the stool, the monarch's stool is still very much powerful, but still in of itself, it's a state. There's a democratic system of government. It's very interesting and also complicated.
Interesting times. You are correct, but limited influence is the point here.
Yeah.
But where it goes up to deposing a sitting emir, then that's kind of like a big problem. However, we do have Debola with us here. She's going to be bringing us the news at 9. But Debola, you are welcome. Good to have you on. I was wondering what you thought about the situation in Kano and whether you are as excited as I am, as my uncle has been
the way you're claiming this man.
reinstated back as the emir. What do you think about it, Debola?
Start off, good morning, good to be here, Mazzino and Judith. I mean, to start off as to, you know, him being reinstated, it's important to understand why in the first place he was deposed, you know, from his throne. In 2022, he was dethroned by the then governor for allegations of insubordination as well as political interference. Now he's been reinstated. I'm hoping to see how that plays out, what impact it's going to make in Kano, and then, you know, what impact he also makes in terms of the political landscape in Kano, and also enlightenment, because I noticed he was doing a lot of enlightenment back then, you know, reaching out, holding press conferences here and there, trying to see changes within the Kano, you know, as a state itself, and also the bigger Nigeria. So I'm happy he's back. He's an intellectual, like we all know, and I'm hoping to see, you know, greater changes it brings about in Kano State.
What did you think could have happened if the former emir was granted perhaps maybe entry into the occasion? Do you think he might have caused much disruption?
Because, you know, you just like drama.
Well, drama is Nigeria, isn't it?
Oh, my God.
But what do you think might have happened in your view?
Well, but going by the antecedents of Sanusi Lamido, I mean, he seems to be, you know, a calm person, and I think to a large extent very reasonable. So I think the situation would be handled, you know, pretty well. I don't think it should have caused, you know, much of chaos. I don't think so.
I must say, if there's one thing, he embodies charm and charisma.
Yes.
Is what the newer generation will call Riz. The guy's got Riz, I would say. And I, like you said, you know, one of the things he did was, you know, sort of enlighten the people, and he went on this educational and reconditioning of the minds of the indigenes of Kano, and even just, you know, indigenes of the north, the northerners, and northern part of Nigeria, and really spoke to a very pertinent issues that plagues that part of the nation. And so I'm very excited to see what the next chapter would look like for him. I'm really excited for that, because hopefully we're able to move past all the brouhaha that's now brewing, you know, with his reinstatement, and let's see, you know, what's going to come with this rule. But long may his rule reign. Is that what you say?
Yeah, you got it. Debola, let's let you bring us the news for 9 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to the news on Breakfast Extra. I am Adebola Adeduba. Let's begin the news by telling you that the power tussle in Kano has taken a different dimension as Governor Abba Kabiru Yusuf has ordered the arrest of the immediate past Emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, over an alleged plot to create tension in the state. This was disclosed in a statement signed by Sanusi Bature Dawankin Tofa, the spokesperson to Governor Yusuf, and shared in a tweet by his senior special assistant on digital media to the governor on Saturday, May 25th. In what can be described as an unprecedented event in the history of the ancient Kano Emirate, the deposed Emir of Kano has once again re-emerged to take his seat following his reinstatement by the Kano State House Assembly and the governor of the state. Sanusi Lamido, who has re-emerged as Muhammadu Sanusi II, now becomes the 16th Emir of Kano, a situation that has evoked widespread jubilation amongst his followers. Our correspondent Emmanuel Bagudo is in Kano and tells us more.
Widespread jubilation in Kano as supporters of the deposed emir welcome the reinstatement of the 16th emir of Kano, Muhammad Sanusi II. After being deposed by former Governor Abdullahi Ganduje, the wait has been long, but now finally over. With the law legitimizing his removal now repealed by the current legislative and executive arms of government in Kano State, Sanusi Lamido has now returned to take back his position.
So let me, at this material time, congratulate our Emir, His Royal Highness Sanusi Lamido and Sanusi, CEO, popularly known as Muhammad Sanusi II.
Residents in Kano expressed their thoughts on the events playing out in the Asian city.
The administration of His Excellency Abba Kabir Yusuf. Abba Kabir Yusuf, indeed, now he is a role model to the entire governors in Africa, not only Nigeria alone, because he is doing the right thing in Kano, and from everywhere in the world, most people are praying to him, most people are hailing him, alhamdulillah. This is a great thing, alhamdulillah. I congratulate the people of Kano.
Kano State today, everybody is going on his normal business. And anywhere you go, they're just shaking hands, thanking God for this today, and thanking the governor for fulfilling his promise. During his campaign, he promised that he will return the Emir of Kano, Muhammad Sanusi, and he will dissolve all the 5 emirates. Alhamdulillah, today he fulfilled the promise. So everybody is happy with him. And if you want to know the reaction of people, whether they love Muhammad Sanusi or not, please be with us tomorrow or next tomorrow, where we'll take him from Government House to his palace.
Sanusi Lamido also has this to say.
Addu'ar mutanen Kano, addu'ar mutanen Nigeria, addu'ar mutane ko ina a duniya, Niger, Cameroon, Senegal, Saudi Arabia, Burkina, Mauritania, babu inda al'umma ba su yi addu'a Allah ya dawo da Kano yadda take ba. Mutanen da suke da hannu a cikin wannan sun wuce a girbi. Babu abin da za mu ce musu sai dai mu ce Allah ya saka da alkhairi.
And that thank you message usher in the continuation of the reign of the 14th Emir of Kano. everyone here in Kano is looking out for what they missed about the newly reinstated emir. In Kano State for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
The Ministers of Health, Justice, Housing, Police Affairs and Power have taken turns to present their performance scorecard for the last 1 year. This was as the Ministerial Scorecard series continued for the second day as part of celebration marking the first year anniversary of the current administration. Our correspondent Amadine Oyi tells us more.
In attendance were several cabinet ministers as part of the May 29th first year anniversary celebration.
We are here gathered today as part of the sectoral press briefings, the first, of course, of its kind that this administration has instituted, so that Nigerians will hear firsthand what the leaders are doing for them and have the opportunity to also interrogate some of those policies and programs that need to be carried.
The ministers of FCT, Youth Development, and Steel Development first gave their scorecard.
The FCT administration was assigned presidential priorities 5 and 6 out of the 9 high-impact deliverables were assigned 5 and 6. Priority 5 has to do with enhanced infrastructure and transportation as enablers of growth. And in this case, you talk about accelerate the execution of all ongoing projects, fast-track the completion of various road and infrastructure projects.
Our mission as a ministry, our expectations are clear, even though very ambitious. We aim to create an enabling environment for young people to thrive in various sectors that foster entrepreneurship, provide access to capital resources to enhance skills development, and to ensure the holistic development of young people.
We are at the final stages of raising about 35 or over 35 billion naira from a local financial institution, which is around $25 million, to be able to restart the light section mill of the complex so that we can produce iron rods. That light section mill has a capacity to produce up to 400,000 metric tons of iron rods per annum.
This was followed by the ministers of Petroleum Resources for Oil, Defense, and Solid Minerals Development.
At the time we took hold of office, we were assigned into the Ministry of Petroleum. We were doing about 1 million barrels per day. But today, I'm proud to announce to you that we are doing approximately 1.7 million barrels per day.
We were able to neutralize more than 9,300 bandits and insurgents. We have neutralized no less than 20 commanders that command armies of insurgents and terrorists.
In the year 2024 budget proposal that we submitted, we put about 200 billion. We asked for 200 billion for exploration, and that is data gathering. But because of the paucity of funds generally across board, we couldn't get anything anywhere near that at all. So, in our own lexicology, there is nothing like impossibility. So we put our own creative endeavor into motion. And we are adopting other strategies to secure funding, one of which is a PPP arrangement.
The scorecard series is expected to continue on May the 24th. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Staying in West Africa, Ivory Coast has paid homage to late President Henry Konan Bede at the Presidential Palace in Abidjan. The country's second president from 1993 to 1999 died in August before his burial in his village on June 1st. A career politician born in 1934 to a family of cocoa planters, B-Day was the chosen successor to Ivory Coast's founding father, Felix Houphouët-Boigny, who ruled over the West African nation from independence from France in 1960 until his death in 1993, aged 88.
Notre pays a donc eu une chance inouïe d'avoir un tel homme dans des fonctions aussi importantes et pendant une si longue durée. Il n'y a aucun aspect de nos vies où il n'a eu un impact, où il n'a imprimé sa marque. Nous devons donc tout simplement lui dire merci, merci Président.
La Côte d'Ivoire perd en vous un lieu de repère, un condensé d'expérience, un homme accompli et d'accomplissement, un artisan de paix, un fervent adepte du dialogue fécond, un grand serviteur de l'État, un homme d'une envergure indéniable, une personnalité historique qui a su bâtir son histoire en influençant l'histoire de son pays.
And that's all on the news. It's back to Judith and Mazzino.
I bet you that's my favorite, montage for the entire show. In any case, welcome people. Thanks for staying tuned and staying with us. Now let's take a look at the best editorial cartoons from over the past 1 week in the segment that we call The Strips. And you are welcome. Of course, Judith is going to be joining me here as we take a look at what we have for today's one. Judith, are you ready to go for the strips?
Oh, yes, I am.
Absolutely.
Ready.
So let's begin with the Guardian newspaper, and this one from last week, or rather this week, on Friday, only just yesterday. If you take a look at it, of course, the Guardian has a way of always depicting our president, and in this one, of course, it's no different. What do you see right next to him? Of course, what's going to help Nigeria? Tax Xtra. That's the drug the presidency seems to want to use for like a panacea for every single ailment that Nigeria is going through. And who suffers it? Judith, that's a picture of you right there.
Oh, goodness, what a handsome person. That's a very good-looking person.
At the top there, calm down. I'm still drawing a sample to check how much pints we can get from you. So it's not really about helping, it's about getting more from Nigerians, and that's what this is depicting here. You have to admit that's what it seems like with the multiple taxations and increase in hikes of this and that and more dues that we're paying as Nigerians. This is exactly what we're going through. And I'd like to think that that nurse right there is as complicit as every single person who is in governance today that's just watching it go without giving any suggestion as to
She got a BBL.
Oh, wow. Judith, is that what you noticed? Well, then again, you might want to look at that and say, maybe that's exactly what's happening with our system. Everybody is eating off of all of these taxes that we're getting, that we're putting in as citizens. But that's not the only one we have today because we're going to be moving now. We've got strips from Daily Trust and, of course, The Guardian as well. And today, let's check The Guardian again. There's still another one from The Guardian. The talk bubbles with The Guardian is something that's not going to go anywhere too quickly. I like to set a new world record, and this one's funny. I like to set a new world record in marathon cooking, says son to mother. Mother says, like father, like daughter, or rather daughter. She asks how, and she says, well, your dad was a governor, and he set some national records himself. She asks, what record? And she says, marathon cooking of books. I will tell you exactly what this is referring to. So only just over the past week, a couple of days ago, we had some of the personnel from different administrations come tell exactly what they've been doing for the past 1 year as the Tinubu administration turns one. And I don't know whether you've noticed, but many people are talking about the fact that, or rather what they say is the fact that these don't kind of like add up. I don't know what your view is, Judith, but you want to give us a hand here? What do you think is happening with all the administrations giving their scorecards lately?
Oh, it's very interesting because I thought that I was an elaborate storyteller, but I have been topped. You know, they should write more fiction. They should.
Well, let's just wait and see. The only thing I'll say is this. As Nigerians, if we had a means to hold them accountable, then I guess it'll be fair. But right now, all we can get is what they give us. Talk, talk, talk.
It was a lot of hopes, and we hope to, we are setting to, we believe in that. It wasn't really, anyway, it is what it is.
You're speechless, like most Nigerians. But we'll still see, because this carries on into next week. We'll continue to see each administration and what they put forward as their achievement for the past 1 year. Moving on now to Business Day. And I love Business Day. Well, it comes after Daily Trust. But Business Day for today, this is what you're going to find there, what we found last week. Now, that is the Student Loan Beneficiary Scheme. Check out these fresh young minds going into our education system. Now, if they choose to go through the Student Loan Beneficiary Scheme, this cartoon is telling that you're coming out the other side. And if you notice what is on there, these are charred bodies, people who have been used, who have been disused. And the bubble there says, join the queue and prepare to go through hell, it says. Is this what we think of the scheme? I don't know. I'm not sure. What do you think, Judith?
Look, I don't know anyone who's benefited from the scheme. I don't know anyone.
Well, they're yet to. They're all getting steps to. And I hear that there's a lot of people who are actually queuing up for the scheme and are interested in it. So it's a big deal for.
So does the House represent the amount of the turns, the rigorous tasks that you have to do to get the loan?
Okay, so it's open to all. The portals are open, and there are stringent measures to which you can actually apply for it. You must meet very, very unique factors before you're able to. However, that's not the problem. The problem is getting out the other side. What would you owe the government, and how exactly will they be able to get back the monies that they've given to you as loans? Now, these loans are also, it's stipulated that you can either choose to take it for this term and not the other. But then when I'm out, how would you pursue me? How would you chase me? What would happen if I'm unable to, if I don't have a job after 2 years? Would I still be expected to pay that money, and how would I be able to pay it? So there are very many questions, but yet Nigerian students, or at least the potential students, are still queuing up for it. Man,
there's also the factor of inflation as well. If you're getting the money now, how will you be able to pay back when inflation doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon?
There is that. Let's do one more paper, and we're going to take this one from Business Day again. Very interesting one regarding the increase in bank rates from last week. This picture says it all. I do not need to say anything. I just need to keep quiet and for you to just look. That there is inflation doing the pole jump. It's a pole jump over the interest rates that are being imposed on all the banking sector. And it's not just the banking sector, because it touches you and I, you out there and you, Judith. If you have a loan taken out right now, maybe even just for your business, you should be considering that you might have to pay back more than you even acquired in the first place, because this is just going to keep on happening. It's another system where we see the government trying to tax the entities and especially the people, make us pay. It's like we are the cash cow. I think we had one strip from last week that depicted Nigerians as the cash cow, and this is no different. What do you think, Judith, about this one?
I think it's very, very poignant indeed. Like you rightfully put, that it really just shows that there's so much hurdles that we have to continue to jump, the high jumps that we have to go through. I mean, the economy has had in and of itself increasing interest rates. The MPC trying to make it, they want to make a case for it. That's the Monetary Policy Committee. They want to make a case for it. But really, do we need it now? Is it necessary? Because the people who actually are the ones who are taking out the loans from the banks are, like you said, FMCGs, fast-moving, and all those other companies. And that in and of itself means that they will be paying higher than normally would. And so the prices of commodities may increase as well. I do not know. Don't quote me on this, but no one wants to pay more than they already have.
No one wants to pay anything, period.
Nobody wants to pay anything. Even Nigeria, you're only busy, all right? So relax, all right?
Exactly.
Calm down. No one's increasing interest rate for you. Please, I beg.
Whatever the case, we hope that the coming week is going to be better than what we saw from last week regarding the status of the Naira and how much we have to pay back, whether it's hikes or whether it's taxes and all of this. We're hoping, we're praying. Hang in there, Nigeria. Don't you worry, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel, we hope. Well, I guess that says, hang on, Judith, don't go yet, please. This one's very interesting. Remember the royal commentator that was talking about the visit of Harry and Meghan to Nigeria last weekend?
Yes, I do.
There he is there. Very proper depiction by the Daily Trust. Of course, Mustafa doing his thing again. This one excited me. I can't believe I almost forgot about it. Now look under him. Racism, war crimes, looting, colonialism, and slavery. This is everything that all the atrocities that they've committed. But yet, this this man right here, last weekend, last week actually said these words, and I remember, "There's no way our royal family would go and set foot in Nigeria, where women's rights basically don't exist and where hundreds of kids are regularly kidnapped by extremist Islamic groups. We understand that this happens in Nigeria, and we maybe need help when it comes to curbing these. However, what have you done to Africa in the past that gives you the right to actually say what you said?" I love it when this guy puts his pen to paper and makes these cartoon strips. It's Mustafa again for Daily Trust. Fantastic. This is the one I want to end with.
Fantastic one. I absolutely love that one. I think they should print it out as a sticker and put it somewhere. Put it on every car, every office, every front door in the UK.
Make
and
a
let them, every textbook, send it out as a circular. Because the truth of the matter is that Mustafa does it so well, honestly. And it is the truth. You put us in this mess, and don't try to act like you put us in this mess. You flew here. Your museum is littered with our treasures. It is littered with our heritage. Your museums, everything that you say that is yours, from the diamonds on your crown to the pearls on your neck, to everything that is built of the British monarch, is off of the back of the Commonwealth countries, including Nigeria. So how dare you sit down there and call us...
All right, Judith is okay. Sorry.
I'm being nice, man.
But interested, I feel your pain. I see that passion, and I believe that is the passion of most Nigerians.
Honestly, because how dare you do that? How dare you look at a nation of 200 million people and tell them that because they accepted your crown, your prince, they accepted the monarch. They didn't come here for a royal visit. They came here for their own foundation, and they came here to do things that is about mental health. And then you turn that around, that is supposed to be something for good. You turn it right around and turn it about the monarch?
Hey, this is a situation we find ourselves where we are being perceived as, well, what he says, but we have to do better ourselves. And when we do better, maybe we'll be seen as much, well, something else, something exemplary, perhaps. But thank you very much, everybody, for staying tuned for the strips. We've still got very interesting stories, big stories from over the past 1 week, and one in particular from Jos. That was a very sad story that we're going to be visiting very soon, as gunmen actually killed 40 people in a town called Wase. Let's take a break, and when we get back, that's what we'll be talking about.
And you're welcome back. On Monday, at least 40 people were killed and many others wounded in and around on Zurak village in Nigeria's north central Plateau state, where clashes between herders and farmers are rife. Now, Plateau police spokesperson Alfred Alabo said armed men, often referred to locally as bandits, fleeing an aggressive onslaught by security agents in Bangalala forest of Washe local government area of the state, attacked Zurak and Daki villages late on Monday.
Now, the gunmen were said to have invaded the village of Zurak Bashar district of Wase, which is known to be a very lucrative site for mining. Sources say among those killed were local vigilantes who kept watch for the security of other community members. Residents say the death toll is much higher. They told reporters that dozens of gunmen had stormed the village on motorcycles, shooting indiscriminately, abducting and setting houses ablaze. Now, here with us today to give more insight into these instances, we are being joined by Professor Dung Pam Shak, Professor of Politics, Economy and Development Studies in Jos, and also Mr. Jonathan Peter, who's based in Jos and is a miner there. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you. Professor, you're welcome. Good to have you on.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Professor, we want to ask what the underlying causes for the recurring clashes between herders and farmers in Plateau State really is about, and how do these conflicts impact the stability and security of that region?
Well, can I make some preliminary remarks so that we have the context and the background?
Please go ahead, sir. Yes.
Properly stated. Yes, I want to make the first point that the conflicts on the plateau are not the same. For instance, the conflict in Just Nuts and the conflict in kinds of conflict. So that's the first point, is that the conflicts, on the plateau, over time. So, for instance, header farmers conflict. Now, this conflict has what we now on the plateau call massive attacks, on rural communities. So that the third point to make is that if we do not have understood, then policy issues and interventions will not actually address those issues. So the point I'm making is that there is a need, for Nigerians and for our friends outside Nigeria to know that these conflicts are not the same, and therefore the solutions, which are usually recommended, don't often, solve these problems because the context have not properly been understood. So for WASE, WASE is a local government. It's agrarian in nature and known for production of food and livestock, because therefore there are farmers, there are also headers. And there's also an area that holds a lot of resources, mineral resources, like gold, tin, columbide, and quite a number that we don't know. It takes about some 4 hours from Georgetown to that local government, about 216 kilometers. And the ethnic groups there, and I think this is quite instructive, the ethnic groups there are made up of Tarok, Bogom, Jukun, Hausa Fulani, and other smaller tribes. And this area has boundaries with Taraba State, Kwampan local government in Plateau State, Kanam local government in Plateau State, and Lantang local governments. Now, these boundaries are also very important because when the conflicts, come, at least since 2004, 2006, and the rest, you find that communities in these areas that I have mentioned that have boundaries with the state have also been affected. So mining is going on right now, and the community is having a lot of trouble. People have been lost, lives have been lost, and quite a number of farmlands, have also been destroyed. And as well, herders can't keep their animals. So that's the context. And I want to say that, well, the last unfortunate events that happened where many people, up to 40, were killed, is as a result of a long history of first the relationship between the various ethnic groups within WASE local government, i.e. the Hausa Fulani, the Bogom, versus the Tarok people. And the discussion has basically been around issues around the control of political power in the local government council, as well as issues around land ownership, land control, and the rest. So these are the conflicts in WASE local government. And it will interest you to know that the relationship has been so deepened in the sense that the Tarok people, who are mostly from the Lantan local government, but they have substantial number in WASE local government, so they are a component of WASE local government. They have a feeling that they own land there, and they've been there for quite a long time. And so the House of Fulani, who is also contesting the ownership of the place, have gone into conflict. And I think this is one of the major point that has to be made when we look at historically the history of that conflict. I'm sure you are interested in knowing.
Yes, Professor, I would like to ask, now you've spoken plenty about land ownership. You also at the start spoke about the minerals that can be found in these areas. Now, regarding the ownership of these land and the fightings going on. Has it got anything to do with these minerals, the possession or who owns these lands that actually these minerals can be acquired from? Is that a big factor?
Okay, so when this conflict started, it had to do with control of the local government council, who goes in there, who controls resources at that level. And of course, once that is, placed side by side, issues of land, land is quite a very sensitive matter, where if historically my ancestors, had handed over the land, it's very difficult, to transfer it. So the conflict now is the conflict first started with the contending groups trying to move away populations, from those lands that were hotly contested for, and those movements, saw how the bandits would come. They would raise houses down, at least for communities which they think should be relocated forcibly. So that's what's been going on.
Okay, sir.
Now, yeah. So to tie it with the issue of minerals, interestingly, there's a correlation between not correlation, but at least there's a relationship. Since there's no statistics here to prove this. There's a relationship between these kinds of conflicts, with the mineral owners, mineral mining, in those areas. If you take the classical case of Zamfara, for instance, I've been doing some studies there. Zamfara, the bandits were brought in to protect, the mining areas. But subsequently, the bandits felt that they too have the capacity, to mine. So when bandits are bound to protect the area, bandits try to move away the population from the area, from the land, so that illegal mining can take place. But when some of the bandits felt that they had acquired the capacity to mine themselves, both the illegal miners, that's the artisan miners and so on, were either converted to be workers of the big-time bandit miners now, to work for them. So Professor, that's a classic, example of Zamfara. So if you push it to Plateau State, what's going on there is some kind of forced movement of population from the mining area to other areas where they think they can find security.
Okay, so that's a very good summary of the situation.
Professor Dang, I'm going to quote you here because I understand that Jonathan Peters is just doing it. Jonathan, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for coming on. I hope you can hear us now. Jonathan is a Jos-based miner. You missed, the earlier part of the conversation, but let me turn to you. What the professor here is saying that there's a correlation between the land dispute and, not correlation, I'll take that again. There's a relationship between the land dispute and mining activities, maybe because most of these lands may have components of mineral resources. Can you speak to that statement?
Definitely, there's that relationship, because if you look at it, the landowners and the miners have a good relationship. And if you look at it, once they come into the land to mine, they actually create that very cordial relationship with the owners of the land. But because there are some other interests that come into play, if it comes to mining, there are several interests that come into play. But there are those who also feel they should be the ones actually enjoying the proceeds of that place, or the royalty there, or those who feel they should be the ones actually controlling the mines, not even considering the federal government and even the state, So those are actually some of the issues we have in the mining sector or mining areas. And because of that, you see, bandits actually come into play. Some bandits are actually organized by interest groups, actually, while some are actually within there. They form that to scare people and scare the miners around that area. I think that is where the relationship is being affected.
Jonathan, are you there? I think we lost you for a second there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Yeah. The network is a bit fluctuating here.
There we go.
Yeah. In the issue of the Wase attack, I have to be very blunt about it. This is not because of the mineral around that area that the bandits it's actually an attack. Because if you look at the minerals they're mining around Wase area, they're all industrial minerals, lead, zinc. They're actually heavy minerals. They're not minerals that you can carry in your bag. You need trucks to move them out. And such minerals are not minerals that actually pull much attention. So the bandits' activity are actually around that area, some of them for just like a hideout, because Zurak area, precisely where the major lead zinc mining is taking place, it's quite an area that is completely off network. If you're going there, be sure that you can communicate with the other world, except if you have
so it seems like that's a perfect place, that's a perfect spot to hit when it comes to insecurity, because you are disconnected from the grid, and that literally means no telecommunication access, internet access, and even electricity.
Yeah. Honestly, it's quite a remote area. So even roads, you imagine you're riding on a bike. If I want to go there, I actually take a bike. I can't drive there with my car. I take a bike for like 3 hours riding on a bike on top speed. I'm going to an area, there's no network, no good road. So you see, it's quite open to bandits and any other robbery activity. So I think the security need to check on that very properly, not really the mining activity that is actually causing the problem there.
So you just talked about the security structure, right? You just spoke about it, saying the security needs to be done. But earlier, when Professor Pam was giving his take there, he said at first the bandits were brought in and they were much more organized to sort of provide security. And then there's a vigilante structure as well, which is also created to help to provide security. Now, with these two structures that are there, what then is the state government? Is it the case of the state government providing security for this mining activities that are going that are supposed to be legal? Talk to us about the security structure in and of itself. Make it more robust for us to understand exactly what's going on, given how remote these locations are.
Yeah, I think that both the state government and the federal government, including the local government, have to really organize the security there for the miners, for the legal miners around there to be protected. That's number one. And number two, we have the vigilante groups around, which they're doing a very good work. They are really helping in terms of robbery and other attacks on the road. They're doing a good job. Honestly, if they have a good support from the state government and the federal government, I think this banditry issue will actually reduce drastically around the mining area. Some of them are actually coming not to actually disrupt the mining activity, but they're coming to rob. Most especially, let me give a typical example like what Prof talked about, the Zamfara issue. You know, the Zamfara issue is a gold mining. You can put a kg, 2 kg of gold in your pocket and go away with it. That's what those bandits mostly go for. They actually go to rob. So security needs to be checked properly. There needs to be a very organized security architecture around the mining area so that it will protect the miners and even those that are investing in the mining too.
Okay, then, Professor Pam, I want to come back to you, Professor. Now, Just like my colleague has just stated regarding the use of vigilante for security, is it to say that the government of these areas are not providing security for the people that work or live there? And what are the potential risks of actually leaving it to vigilante groups to just help out with security? Can't these vigilantes themselves, in turn, become the bandits eventually? We've seen this happen in the north many times. What's your take, sir? Professor Pam, I'm hoping you're still with us.
Professor, I think you are muted.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, I've just muted, yes. Thank you very much. I was making the point that security generally in the country has not been sufficient, for citizens. And you would know that at the state level, yes, you will have some level of security, but at the local government level, that is where the problem is. And so if states can't provide enough security to such areas, vigilantes are the only option that is available. And happily, those local governments, have found out that one just very small solution would be vigilantes. And they are not really enough, with the kind of sophistication of weapons that they would require to respond to the challenges of the bandits, who usually have more, sophistication in terms of the equipment that they use, weapons that they use. So my thinking is that the state will have to do more in that particular area by providing support, to the local vigilante. And probably they will have to they will have to draft more people, more security officers to that area. Because right now, inside Jos, we don't have the kind of problems that we had, some years ago. So yes, we can at least move some security officers, to Wasi. Since more lives have been taken, these are lives that cannot be brought back. This is the farming season. Farmers have to go to the farms. And again, if there are, because I think there are still illegal to do something in order to know who is legal and who is not legal, so that some sanity can be restored in that community.
Honestly, sanity is indeed, when you think about it, the people who are in the crossfire of this all is the indigents and the residents of these communities. And I can only imagine sleeping at night every day thinking that this is the night where the bandits attack, or this is the night where you would most likely not sleep well. But many thanks to you, Professor, and also many thanks to you, Jonathan Peters. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation this morning. And we'll continue to follow as to see how the communities, just to see how the story continues to unfold. Many thanks for taking out the time this morning to join us again.
You're welcome.
And that's Professor Dangshan Pan. He is a professor with the University of Jos, as well as Jonathan Peters, who is a Jos-based miner. And they join us today to talk about the recent attacks in Zurak community village in Plateau, Jos, north-central Nigeria. We'll take a short break at this point. When we come back on the other side, we're bringing you sports. Stay with us.
Good morning, and of course, welcome to Sports on Breakfast Xtra. And Favor Itua. We begin with stories from the Super Eagles of Nigeria, where, of course, Super Eagles of Nigeria head coach Finidi George has released his squad to face South Africa and Benin Republic for the FIFA World Cup qualifiers next month. UEFA Europa League winner Ademola Lookman, African Player of the Year Victor Osimhen, German Bundesliga winner Victor Boniface among the list of 23 players who will do the battle. George also invited goalkeeper Stanley Wabali, England-based defenders Calvin Bassey and Semi Ajayi, midfielders Wilfred Onye Ndidi, Alex Iwobi, Alassane Yusuf, and forwards Kelechi Iheanacho and Terry Murphy. Nigeria will lock horns with South Africa at the Godswill Akpabio International Stadium, Uyo, on Friday, 7th of June, starting from 8 p.m., and then fly to Abidjan to face Benin Republic at the Stade Félix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium on Monday, 10th of June, starting from 5 p.m. Nigerian time. Interesting times ahead, and of course, a big task lies ahead for Finidi George. Still talking football, for the second time, Equatorial Guinea must forfeit 2 World Cup qualifying games for fielding star player Emilio Nsue when he was ineligible, according to FIFA on Friday. The second FIFA disciplinary case involving Nsue's eligibility comes 11 years after the first. The latest ruling was announced just 4 months after he was the tournament's top scorer at the Africa Cup of Nations, where he was permitted to play by the continent's governing soccer body. FIFA said its disciplinary committee ruled that Equatorial Guinea's first 2 World Cup qualifying games played last November must be forfeited at 3-0 losses. Equatorial Guinea won both games against Namibia and Liberia 1-0, with Nsue scoring the goal. This puts the country in last place in its 6-team qualifying group for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Sad one for Nsue and Equatorial Guinea. Don't forget, he was the highest scorer at the just concluded AFCON, and he will not be taking part, and he has also cost his country a series of points. And now to CAF. Of course, FIFA has said that one of Africa's representatives in the upcoming World Club Cup may be thrown out. Now, the football body had listed Al Ahly's Egypt, Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa, Esperance of Tunisia, Wydad Casablanca of Morocco as the African representatives. But the football governing body is set to trial the Moroccan side for not meeting their financial requirements. They are listed, of course, by FIFA as one of the clubs that is owing and banned from player registration. FIFA and CAF say that if you are owing, of course, and haven't reached a total agreement to settle your debts with former current players, you will not receive the license to take part in any of their competitions. They have until May 31st to settle all issue or elsewhere. And of course, to wrap up sports updates, let's go straight now to the world of basketball, all about Nigerian champions, Rivers Hoopers. Of course, we hope to reach new heights in the Basketball Africa League when they begin their playoff campaign against AS Douane today at the BK Arena in Kigali. The 2024 BAL season has entered the defining stage as the playoffs began on Friday and will last until the 1st of June. Hoopers and Douane met twice in the Sahara Conference and came off with a win each. Following their brilliant outing at the Sahara Conference in Dakar, Rivers Hoopers head coach Ogo Daudu has also set new targets for the Kingsmen. The Kingsmen will face AS Douane in the seeding game on Saturday before playing against Petro de Luanda or US Monastir in the quarterfinals. The Hoopers last played in Kigali at the inaugural edition of the BAL in 2021 and could only manage 1 win in 3 games. Interesting times ahead for Rivers Hoopers, and we hope that they can, fly the flag of Nigeria and represent well on the continent. All right, that wraps it up on Sports on Breakfast Extra. We'll, of course, go straight to Judith and Mazino standing by.
Hello and welcome to the news on Breakfast Extra. I am Adebola Adedua. Let's begin by telling you that the power tussle in Kano has taken a different dimension as Governor Abba Kabiru Yusuf has ordered the arrest of the immediate past Emir of Kano State, Aminu Ado Bayero, over an alleged plot to create tension in the state. This was disclosed in a statement signed by Sanusi Bature Dawanki Tofa, the spokesperson to Governor Yusuf, and shared in a tweet by the Senior Special Assistant on Digital Media to the Governor on Saturday, May 25. Meanwhile, a group of concerned citizens and stakeholders across the country gathered on Friday at the presidential villa, calling on President Bola Tinubu to intervene in the ongoing crisis affecting the Kano Emirate. The group also visited the National Assembly over the same matter. The protesters, who marched peacefully, carried signs and banners expressing their concerns about the escalating situation in Kano State. They urged President Tinubu to use his good office to resolve the crisis and ensure the restoration of peace and stability in the state.
Of Nigeria, CPN, therefore condemned the actions of Kano State Governor. The governor's choice of action flies in the face of reasons and has no place in sane and civilized society. We urge Governor Yusuf to retrace his steps and stop further undermining the peace of Kano State and, by implication, the peace of the nation Nigeria. We also condemn the new Nigerian People's Party, NNPP, dominated Kano State House of Assembly, that they have cemented their place as a conclave of shame to have reverted into a mere rubber stamp for the megalomaniac tantrums of the state governor. They, alongside Governor Yusuf, have taken their desperation to an extent that could set the ancient city of Kano on fire and cause breaches in the land. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to call Governor Yusuf to order, since the provocation he is causing in Kano State could affect the entire country, Nigeria.
And now to politics. The national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, has been suspended from the party in Ward 3 in Arurome in Eastern Northeast local government area of Edo State for alleged high-handedness and anti-party activities. A letter of suspension dated May 14, 2024, and another letter of ratification dated May 15, 2024, both of which were ratified at a meeting of the Executive Committee on Friday night in Benin, stated that the suspension is with immediate effect. The Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered an interim forfeiture of the sums of $4,719,054 and $830,875,611 naira and several properties linked to the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele. Justice Yelim Bagoro of the court made the order on Thursday following an ex parte application filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Counsel, Bilikisu Buhari and C.C. Chinenye. The monies forfeited to the federal government in the interim were said to be warehoused in First Bank, Titan Bank and Zenith Bank, being operated by Omele Anita Joy, Deep Blue Energy Service Limited, Exact Court Bureau de Change, Lepan Investment Services Limited, Tatla Services Limited, Rusa Jewel Global Resources Limited, and Teal Communication Nigeria Limited. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu says the federal government will provide 10 million meters to electricity consumers in the next 5 years to address the metering gap. Adelabu said this in Abuja on Friday during the ministerial briefing on the performance of President Bola Tinubu's administration in the last 1 year. He said the provision of the meters under presidential metering initiative would close the metering gap and reduce estimated billing. The minister said the initiative was scheduled to provide 2 million meters per annum in the next 5 years to improve sector liquidity and limit estimated billing. Helicopter operators are set to meet Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, soon to discuss the newly imposed $300 landing fee charges. The Airline Operators of Nigeria has urged the minister to suspend the levy until a thorough discussion can take place, emphasizing their concerns and reasons for opposing the fee. The Aviation Ministry had mandated the helicopter operators to pay a newly introduced $300 landing charge, which will be collected by Naibi Dynamic Concept Limited on behalf of the federal government. However, this directive has raised concerns among the operators who oppose the new charges. And that's all on the news. It's back to Judith and Mazzino.
Well, thank you very much, Debola. Thank you for bringing us all the information we needed to know this hour for the news. Now, we do have more information coming your way, and this is all the way from Kano State. Judith, you want to tell us exactly what's happening currently?
Oh, yes, indeed. So we do know that from yesterday, it's been so much going on, from the turbaning of the emir, the latest emir of Kano, which is, of course, Muhammadu Sanusi II. He was turbaned yesterday. He also received his letter of reinstatement. And now a lot is now happening in Kano. Number one, we've seen scenes from the protests earlier when Adebola brought us the news of youths of concerned patriots in Kano there, that they were protesting. Also, we have now seen one of the latest news that broke late last night and early this morning of Governor Yusuf putting out a circular ordering for the arrest of Emir Ado Bayero. Now, we're going to patch to our correspondent who is live in Kano and has been following this story as it developed all through yesterday and today, is none other than Emmanuel Bogudu. Emmanuel, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, Abu.
Good morning. It's very bright there and sunny, unlike here that is wet and dreary. But tell us, is it as bright the mood as well in Kano?
Well, unlike yesterday, the mood is a bit tense this morning. I'm right here at the Emir's Palace, live at the Emir's Palace. And then the governor is right into the palace. And then, of course, he's with the new Emir, but he's been denied access, as we were told. So they're just trying to get access into the palace together with the new Emir.
Emmanuel, what exactly is happening? Why are they being denied access into the palace? I mean, he is the Emir currently, and who exactly is denying them access into the palace? Emmanuel, if you didn't hear me, I'm going to ask again. I'm asking who is denying the Emir access into the palace, if you will let us know. I think we might be having problems with connection.
I think we've lost Emmanuel there.
Yeah, but apparently there seems to be a situation where he's being denied access into the palace. As soon as we get Emmanuel back, we'll get detailed information of exactly who is denying him access inside of the palace. However, we do have information regarding the past Emir, and that is talking about Ado Bayero and the need for him to get arrested. This is coming from the state governor, by the way, after he, seems to have appeared yesterday during the turbaning, wanting to cause what they thought could have been some kind of disturbance. There's been a call out for his arrest. However, there is still a youth protest that is going on, which I would think that is something in his support. It's a very interesting dynamic after the turbaning of the 16th Emir, and we're hoping, like I said in my monologue, whether this is going to be a political thing from now. This is supposed to be a traditional process, but to see politics creep in and affect it, now, this is what I'm expecting would be our major story onward from this week. We have Emmanuel back now. Emmanuel, welcome back. Can you hear me, Emmanuel? Emmanuel, so we're asking who exactly was denying or is denying the Emir and the governor access into the palace? I don't think Emmanuel can hear us, unfortunately.
We seem to not have your audio.
Activities here, a lot of security activities have been coming in because, of course, we have seen the Karuta, the vigilante, the civil defense, the DSS, all are in the Emir's palace. The governor is right inside the palace together with the new Emir, but we're told that he's been denied access by some forces, unknown forces, in Abuja. So we are waiting for the governor to step out to see if he can talk to us and let us know whether he has been able to, put the Emir back to his seat.
And now with this, with all that's happening, can you tell us more about the protests? We saw scenes of a protest of youths. They call themselves Concerned Patriots of Nigeria. Talk to us about that protest and what are they calling for? What are they protesting for? Emmanuel, are you there?
Can you just repeat your question, please? Just repeat your question, please. I can hear you.
Oh, yes. I was asking about the protests for the youths. They call themselves Concerned Patriots of Nigeria, and they were protesting on the grounds, saying either against the reinstatement of Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II. Talk to us about all and what their demands really are in this protest.
Yes, the protests that happened in Abuja, have actually inspired another protest that is likely to happen here in front of the Emir's Palace this morning. Maybe I can just pan and show you people have started converging right in front of the Emir's Palace. And then, of course, place the camera. And then, of course, security officials are coming in to see how they can control the situation. Like I said earlier on, the governor has found his way into the Emir's Palace together with the new Emir, Muhammad Sanusi II. And then, of course, he came in secretly with that siren. I was privileged to see the governor myself, but of course, no cameras, no pictures. And I was told that if I need to talk to anyone, I have to just go out. But the governor is right inside the palace together with the Emir, and then he's trying to see that he gain access into the palace with the Emir. He's inside, but the main chamber, he's not granted access. He's just trying to be diplomatic, no cameras, and then he's just trying to, find a way of trying to settle the situation amicably without any stress. So that is the situation right now. A protest is likely to occur here, and there are talks that are gathering, and then, of course, security officers are also gathering in front of the palace right here in Kano.
Emmanuel, now could the blockade that is being experienced now by the Emir, him being stopped from entering into the palace, does it have anything to do with the court order that was served asking that the turbaning not go on?
Yeah, naturally, I think since there's a court order, we have not gotten any reply from the governor's side whether it is because of the court order that he's been denied access. But he has not have access. He's not having any access as at now. I'm in front of the palace. I'm likely going to go out. I'm likely going to go back inside and then check and then get back to you later.
Okay. Right. Emmanuel, yesterday when we spoke, you talked to us about how, you know, it was sort of a celebratory mood in Kano. Has that changed, giving, you know, the looking like there's going to be another protest now in front of the palace there? The emir, the new emir, has been blocked from getting in. Have the mood with the people changed, or is it still the same, a celebratory mood across the town?
Of course, listening to what is happening right now, you know that the people's mood has changed naturally because they are no longer happy like yesterday. Here is actually tense as I speak to you, and I'm just trying to give you an update. The entire environment here is tensed, but of course, we're in the Emir's palace, no cause for alarm, but the entire atmosphere right now in Kano is tensed. Talks have begun to gather from the Aminu Ado Bayaro's side, and of course from the Sanusi Samidu's side. They are beginning to gather, and they are gathering really hard with arms. We have seen a lot of them with arms.
Emmanuel, many thanks so much. We're going to continue to partner with you here for more on this story as it develops. So many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning. You're watching in Breakfast Extra here on News Central TV. That was Emmanuel Bugado. But coming up is our Focus Africa, and this time we're going to be focusing on big elections happening in South Africa next week. Stay with us.
Now, after 30 years of dominating South African politics, the ruling African National Congress will face its toughest election next week, as most opinion polls predict it will lose its preliminary parliamentary majorities for the first time. Now, once admired under the leadership of Nelson Mandela and regarded as a beacon of hope for the black majority following the fall of apartheid in 1994, the ANC's reputation has been battered by record levels of unemployment, widespread poverty, the collapse of some government services, and more than a decade of corruption scandals, leaving voters quite disillusioned.
And now for that, the former South African President, Jacob Zuma, on Thursday criticized the country's highest court and his former allies in the ruling African National Congress over his disqualification from next week's election and said he would fight for his rights in a disciplined way. Now, Zuma's comment came in a video message he said he was aimed at the people of South Africa and released on social media 6 days before the possibly pivotal national vote. The 82-year-old former leader made clear he would still campaign against the ANC he once led in the run-up to Wednesday's elections with his new political party. Now, even though he has been barred from standing as a candidate for a return to Parliament 6 years after he resigned the presidency under a cloud of corruption allegations.
Now, joining us to discuss the potentials that lie therein for the MK or the ANC parties is Dr. Noluthando Fungula. Thank you for joining us. She is from the Pan-African Institute for African Thoughts and Conversation. Thank you very much for joining us, Noluthando. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, would like to find out what exact factors do you believe have led the ANC's significant decline in popularity over the past many years?
All right. So, I think a good point to start is that the ANC in South Africa remains the dominant party. And yes, as you rightfully said, the party has lost popularity in the country. And this is, as you said in your opening statement, as a result of many factors. So we're looking at a lot of corruption, scandals around corruption. We're also looking at mismanagement of money, the economy. There's also a lot of inequality in the country, a lot of crime. The party has also failed to create employment opportunities and also issues of service delivery. So we're looking at issues such as water, and you would know we have had for years issues with electricity, what we call load shedding in the country, and also the political infighting in the party itself.
Now, you just spoke to the corruption scandals. Can you elaborate on the impact of the corruption scandals on the ANC's reputation, and especially when it comes to voters and the voter base?
Yeah, so the corruption scandals have really dented the party's reputation. But despite this, let's not forget that the ANC holds very important credentials in the country. It is one of the main liberation struggle parties. So because of this, the ANC has continued to enjoy majority for over 20 years in the country. However, these credentials have been tainted, as we've said. But nonetheless, the party still enjoys a huge following in the country, particularly in rural areas, also in townships. And I think that people in the rural areas and also in townships still continue to vote for the ANC. And why is this? These are the people that have not forgotten that the ANC was the party that actually liberated them from the very brutal apartheid government, or the apartheid regime, rather. Moreover, the ANC in those particular areas has been instrumental in the provision of water, electricity, and so on. So the poor areas mainly have continued to vote for the ANC. However, the more affluent areas have been divided in their votes. They've been able to voice their dissatisfaction with the party. But we also have the people that are benefiting from the ANC being in power, and these people are continuing to vote for the ANC.
Okay, so let's talk about the opposition for the ANC, which is the MK, the Umkhonto Sizwe Party. It being led originally by the former president himself, Jacob Zuma. Now, if the ANC is under plenty of attack for the corruption scandals that it's had over the past many years, and the MK party is being led by Jacob Zuma, who himself has got his own share of scandals, what other options do voters have? And what are the potentials if the ANC actually loses this time?
All right. So if the ANC loses, it's going to be quite tricky in the country, because it's going to be for the first time that we are going to have a coalition arrangement. And this means that the ANC will have to actually adapt to power sharing and also compromise. So what happens in the country is that we vote political parties to the National Assembly, and they then vote for the president within a month of the general election. A challenge that we do have in the country is that our constitution doesn't make provisions for coalition governments and how they should be formed and how they should be run. So this actually poses a challenge. Then in terms of the former president and his newly formed MK party, I think that the former president is a very influential man. His formulation of the party and the MK actually threatens the ANC, particularly because many members of the MK, Umkhonto Sizwe Party, are members of the ANC. These are people that love the ANC. And however, they are unhappy with how the ANC has been conducting itself currently. So definitely it does pose a threat for the ANC, because majority of the people or the members of the MK are members of the ANC.
And what are your thoughts on Jacob Zuma's recent criticism of the South African judiciary and his former allies within the ANC?
Well, I think it lies in the point that you just made there, his former allies. Definitely the Constitutional Court's decision is not in favor of the former president. So I think it's natural for him to then criticize the Constitutional Court. However, he would have to abide by the decision of the court. The court, however, has said that even though he is barred from participating in the National Assembly, he can still lead the party in other ways, just not in the National Assembly.
And also, still on Zuma, right? But how significant is Zuma's influence in South African politics today, despite his, disqualification from the upcoming elections?
All right, so as I've said, Zuma has been quite smart in the way that he's positioned himself. So this is a man who's positioning himself as sort of like a messiah, to say that I am the savior of everyone who loves the ANC but is unhappy with the ANC, particularly under the leadership of President Ramaphosa. So as I said, I do think that he's quite influential. And how do we see this? His party is less than 6 months old. However, it is threatening the ANC. So the polls are suggesting that the ANC could get just over 40% and the MK over 8%. So that's making it like the fourth largest in the National Assembly. So it definitely poses a threat. And I'd also like us to just look at his influence via the July unrest of 2021. So that came about as a result of his imprisonment during the time. So we can see he enjoys a lot of support in KwaZulu-Natal, also in Gauteng, and also in Mpumalanga, and the rest of the country as well. So those that love him really love him, and those that don't really don't. But he is indeed a man of influence.
So very interestingly, you just said what I was about to ask regarding his strongholds, which you just mentioned, KwaZulu-Natal being his home province would be, well, he would have plenty of supporters there. But coming to the ANC, where do they still hold the majority over? What provinces, and what's the potential come Wednesday? Where do you think they might have the biggest support?
Whoa, yeah, that's a tricky one. I think in total, so in the National Assembly, they've stated the ANC is most likely to get 40% of the votes and above. So the ANC, I think, is still going to lead. However, I think in KZN and also somewhat in Gauteng, the MK is really going to eat away from the votes of the ANC. So definitely, I think Mpumalanga, Gauteng, and also KZN, the MK is really going to be making inroads.
Well, Noluthundu, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you for doing this to us and just joining us today on this edition of Focus Africa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's Dr. Noluthundu Pungula. She's a researcher at Pan-African Institute for African Thought and Conversation, talking to us about the upcoming South African general elections that's going to be happening this coming week. Well, stay with us. Many more is coming up on the other side. This is Breakfast Extra.
It's a special segment this morning here, and we are going to be telling you who's joining us, a very special guest, but you know him already as he is a News Central correspondent. But over the week, we had a very interesting investigative piece go out, a documentary on the Jagba syndrome. And it was brought to us none other than by our very own Marshall, who's in the studio here with us. Marshall, you are welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Mazina.
Looking a bit too dapper. I don't like it when you do this.
See you, Mitch.
It's okay. It's all right, Judith. It's all right.
You look beautiful as well.
Welcome, Marshall.
I do my best. Thank you so much, Marshall. And also, well done as well. Interesting piece. Funny thing is, we have the privilege to be behind the scenes and see you when you go through your process and go through all of it. But for the benefit of those who are just watching, what inspired you to go ahead and do this piece, to go on investigative journalism? How were you able to get, don't tell us your trade secrets, but why this piece?
Okay, so this piece was inspired, it was informed by the victims who had reached out to us to say, look, this was currently going on in Vietnam. They were Nigerians who had come into Vietnam at the time, and they were promised jobs by agents who were supposedly back home here in Nigeria, some of whom they had not met. They had just barely spoken on phone and had agreed to, do visa, as they would put it, do visa for them to countries like Canada and America. And by the time the negotiation gets deeper and probably these guys get to make some financial commitment, you'd find that the story will change. And the agents will begin to say, things like, the Canadian connection is no longer valid, the American connection is no longer valid, but we can get you jobs in Vietnam, Bermuda, and Cyprus. You know, those are countries that, you know, they pander around the conversation. And then because these guys have already made financial commitment, they'll just settle for less. And 3 years back, the Vietnamese government had advertised for, they had made English a compulsory subject in their tertiary education and secondary schools, which was not the case ab initio. And they had advertised for English teachers from countries like Ghana, Nigeria, and they were going to give stay, so to speak, some citizenship to an extent to people who would apply for these jobs and qualify. And so there was an influx of people from these countries in Vietnam. But as it turns out, last year, the Vietnamese government turned that policy around. But you still find these predators who would prey on unsuspecting Nigerians advertise the same thing that the Vietnamese government had advertised 3 years ago, claiming that there are jobs, and would offer these victims the same employment letters that were used back in the time when that exercise was still valid. So they'll fall prey, take these employment letters, have them apply for visiting visas, and then get to Vietnam, you know, maybe for a month, valid for a month or 3, only to find out that there are no jobs. And before leaving, they'll tell them, don't worry, because by the time you get your visa, you'd find out that it's a visiting visa or a tourist visa, and then you'd begin to question as to why it's not a work permit and all of that. They'll tell you when you get there, you would find, call so-so-so person and all of that. And trust me, there were people who paid 9 million, there were those who paid 5 million, 2.5, and, you know, and all sorts.
I want to ask, there was some unwritten or, you know, observable factor inside of the documentary that you put together. Now, you call them predators. My question is, does it seem, or is it just me, that they are preying on a certain class of people? If they are indeed preying on a particular class of people, is 9 million naira not so much to get to? Do you have 9 million in your account now?
Don't do this to me on national television.
So my question is, if they're preying on a certain class of people, how are these people themselves still able to afford these huge amounts that are being bandied about for them to be able to leave Nigeria?
Zina, I tell you, it's mind-boggling, you know. But I tell you, the thing about Japa syndrome, that is the quest to want to leave the shores of Nigeria for a search of greener pasture or a prospect of greener pasture beyond the shores of Nigeria, has nothing to do with class. I think because of the economic realities we are currently confronted by in Nigeria, everybody seems to want to settle for anything other than, you know, being here. So, but the thing is, with the money, once they start these conversations, you might have 500,000, you might have $1 million naira. You just want to start the conversation and see the realities of how you can get across. And the moment you start, you get stuck. And you would want to see it to finish. Some of them take up loans, some of them sell their landed properties, some of them sell their cars, you know, whatever they can lay their hands on just to liquidate and get the funds to pay these agents to get across. So it's not about class.
How do they find those agents? How do they find those predators, the agents that are facilitating this japa?
More than 80% of them you would find online. You just simply Google, how can I immigrate to wherever, Canada.
So they're just right there in plain sight on your mobile phone?
You find flyers, you find banners, you find write-ups, you find articles, you find videos on YouTube, so across social media platforms. And some of them you'd even find posters on streets. In fact, one of the victims whom we spoke with said he found, he sent us a picture of the poster where he got the number of the agent and the streets of Umuahia in Abia State. You know, it was just immigrate to Canada, will give you work permit, paying $10,000 and then phone number. So he reached out to the guy.
Paying $10,000
as salary, and then he reached out to the guy and they got talking, and then he found himself in Vietnam. The day he got to Vietnam, he found out that there was no job, started crying, made all attempt to get back home. Before you knew what was happening, his visiting visa had expired, and he was, you know, caught up against the law, and the authorities came to get him.
And he was deported back to Nigeria.
Well, you don't get deported that way. You know, there are procedures. You would pay some fines, and if you cannot meet up with your government expectations in terms of the fine, you either get detained, you'll be asked to reach out to your loved ones back home to see if they can get these fines paid off.
Okay.
So it's an interesting piece. It's going to break by 7:30 tonight. You know, would like everyone to tune in and really watch a lot of things. And we do hope that it's going to be an unfolding series.
And also to stir conversation as well.
Yes, yes.
Did you speak with any of these predators yourself? And how far did that go?
We did. So we reached out to several of them. We did what we usually would do from, you know, the back end. You'd find they would equally lie to us. They lied to us about where they were at the time, just the same way they had lied to some of these applicants, candidates, so to speak. You know, some of them said they were in Thailand, some said they were in Canada, but they were going to run the package for us here. But when we eventually did our GPS, you know, tracking, we found out that they were within our locales. We had scheduled some appointments to meet, but you find them evading. You'd find them, you know, moving appointments and venues.
And the victims of this predators and these agents, was it the same for them? Were they also evading, you know, a meetup, or was it just mostly virtually the transactions between them until they got to Vietnam?
Certainly. But there were a few cases where, after paying, you would find that these victims would come to Lagos or Abuja and want to board, and they'll tell them, when you come to the airport to board, I'll send somebody to help you board. And even at that point, when you get to the airport, the person who would be sent, either, I want to believe most times it will be the same agent, but would want to make it look like I am not the one who's come to meet you, just in case you get crazy and you want to, you know, put up some arrest or, you know, around that. So they'll say they'll send someone, and the person would come, and even at that point in time, you'll still find them defrauding these people of the physical cash they're having. Like one person, a few of them were asked, how much are you having? And you say, oh, I have 1 million naira. So, oh, no, you can't cross with 1 million naira. Bring it. So I'll do you a wire transfer. Just when you get across the guys who check, you know, the immigration guys who check you at the airport, when you're waiting to board, I'll find my way from behind and I'll come and give you your card.
What?
That's a lie, obviously.
And you'll never hear of that again, you know.
Wow.
So
you must have done some research before actually going after these guys. I'd like to know exactly how many Nigerians leave Nigeria. I don't know if you have all of these numbers, but how many Nigerians leave Nigeria successfully, legally, and how many Nigerians actually fall prey to these kinds of apparatus that people are putting
a lot of Nigerians leave Nigeria legally, you know. But in terms of the numbers, I might not be able to put it, but I'll tell you this. On a daily basis, you find these people trooping into these countries. My sources in Vietnam keep telling me, even at the time we had put the final mark on the peace we want to break by 7:30, we still had reports coming in from Vietnam to say 5 people just entered. Wow. This is their communication. 7 people just entered. Now, the Nigerian community, some people who are legally there have put up some kind of groups to give some kind of relief and hear these people and help them to channel some of their complaints to the Vietnamese government and the Nigerian consulate there. So they are the ones, most of the time, who give me this report that, oh, 5 people had just reported to our group, 10 people had just reported, even after we had done our research. So you'd find, even as we speak, people are either in the airport, getting on board to, you know, get to Vietnam, or while some are getting off board or alighting from the plane in Vietnam to find out that it's not as juicy as they promised.
It makes me wonder, because you just said that the authorities in Vietnam and also the Nigerian consulate, the embassy there as well, they know these people, they're seeing them. So why is there no PSA or some sensitization from, you know, the Nigerian authorities to be able to tell people that, okay, as much as you'd like to leave, don't fall prey to this type of people? Did you speak to any authorities of Nigerian embassies in diaspora and even here in Nigeria as part of efforts to stop this? Because you're saying there's more still coming and more still unfolding.
Yes. So we have the DG of the Nigerian and Diaspora Commission, NICOM. We will have her coming on subsequent episodes or series that we're putting up, but we've spoken to the Chief of Mission, IOM, which is International Organization for Migration. We've spoken with the Chairman House Committee on Diaspora. We had also scheduled a meeting with the chairman, Minister of Interior, you know, to look at the role of the immigration and even customs by extension in this matter. Now, you raise a question as to why isn't there enough campaign or awareness, you know, to tell Nigerians that this is the right way to travel. Well, I feel that would be the job of the National Orientation Agency, the IOM, who's been doing a lot of campaigns towards this area and helping people get back and resettled in Nigeria when they're deported. They are also doing several campaigns. It might not be enough, but that's the much they can do within their purview. But I tell you, they are doing these campaigns. But on a larger scale, we would expect naturally the National Orientation Agency to take this up and do more. NAPTIP as well, who is in charge of trafficking in persons, we expect them to do more because they are on the home front.
But now, you've spoken about due diligence, you've spoken about the purview of certain organizations or authorities. What about the individual? What about me? If I was going, apart from getting a number from off of the streets and saying, okay, go to Canada, I'm going to call this number. Apart from that, what triggers would I find if I'm going to, if I'm trying to detect that this is a falsehood? What would trigger me in that kind of a communication with these, I was going to call them bandits, with these predators, we call them?
So for someone who's desperate, mark the word desperate. Desperation can do a lot of things to you. It can blind you totally to the realities or consequences of your actions at a time when you're taking certain actions. So desperation would make these people not see the red flags. For instance, you see a post, I mean, if I am in the business of immigrating people or travel for people to resettle and get jobs in Canada and America, I do not think my posters will be on the streets. Then fine, if I choose to put my posters on the streets and then you call me up, I should have a physical stationary office where you can walk in and, you know, make your inquiries and talk with, interface with one or two persons. That is non-existent. And then I go ahead and tell you, look, my own is just to do visa for you. Send your money and I'll do the visa for you. And how do people get to do visa? When I spoke with the IOM chief, he said people shouldn't pay for embassy officials, people who claim to be embassy officials, to do visas for them. There is just a token that is expected of you to pay when you apply for a visa. We all know that. Yes. But the desperate Nigerians, the man on the street doesn't know that. You know, he just feels Mazino knows better. I can get across to Mazino and then he'll help me put the papers and documents together. He'll help me get across to someone who's in Vietnam to get me a job. So that's the level of ignorance that is displayed here.
And I would also love to have talked about, you know, the women and children as well, where their children that were, you know, trafficked or in this situation. Did you encounter women and children?
Yes, yes. There were people who sold their whole asset in Nigeria to get their entire family across because they were given employment letters. They were given fake employment letters. And in as much as you got fake employment letter or an employment letter, you got a tourist visa.
You know, Marshall, 7:30, yes?
7:30.
7:30. Let's not give them too much of the deeds and the juice in it. And just like that, we're right on time to tell you goodbye.
What a Saturday it's been, and what a week from before. We're hoping that we covered all the big stories that were your interest from through the week, but not to worry, we still got one more day where we could be doing that for you, and that's the Sunday edition here for Breakfast Extra.
And it's going to be a very special one. We've got a twofold package, or special, just for you, okay? You're going to see more very bright, shiny faces. The future?
Yes,
I like to leave it at that. So you want to find out what that is about?
Exactly.
Tune in tomorrow. From 8 a.m.
100 days in office. Oh, sorry, I told them.
Now what? It's a year. Look at you.
A year? An entire year in office, I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, help.
So catch you guys tomorrow for a Sunday edition. From us here, my name is Mazino Appeal.
And I'm Judith at TV. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.